everyone out there in GMAT Club land. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world, what time it is for you. I hope you are having a great day. I hope everyone is keeping safe from coronavirus. I am currently at home. I've got the whole family here. We are sheltering in place. I've got my husband in the kitchen doing a conference call. I've got my son in the living room doing a coding camp, but we are all getting through, and hopefully, if you're watching this after March of 2020, hopefully in the future, it won't be such a big deal, but right now it is a big deal, and I hope everyone is staying safe. My name is Maria Wich-Vila. It is wonderful to be here today. I'm super excited to be talking to you about the career vision aspect of your MBA application and the role that it plays. I would really like to thank GMAT Club for hosting me. I love doing these sessions for you guys. And so super quick, for those of you who might not know, admissions consultants like me, we normally charge around $300 to $350 US dollars per hour of our time. And so GMAT Club, though, is able to get us to come here for free and give you this information for free. So in order to show them how much you appreciate this so that they will keep doing it and not see this as like a waste of time, either now or at any point in the broadcast, please do give a thumbs up, hit that like button, and that way they will know that you like this, and then they'll have us back more and more. So with that introduction out of the way, let us get started. I need to share my screen. Just a moment. Isn't it great when technology is, there's so many things it can do, but then there are things it can't do. Aha, here we go. Excellent. So you should all be able to see my screen right now. So let's go ahead and get started. Here is what we are going to talk about today. First of all, you might have heard that for your MBA application, you have to come up with some sort of a thing called a career vision, which is like a future idea of where you want to go professionally. But you might not understand, why do admissions committees even care about my career vision? Like, that's kind of a weird thing for them to really put a lot of importance onto. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to get into the heads of the admissions committee, because the more you understand about what they're looking for, the more you'll be able to tailor your story accordingly. Then I'm going to talk to you about what makes a good career vision. And we're going to talk about then the ways that your career vision is going to subtly influence, or in some ways directly influence, the other aspects of your application. And then if we've got time at the end, I will stick around for a Q&A. So super quick hi there, in case you haven't seen any of my videos before, I'm Maria. In this picture that was taken of me, I was all dressed up. Right now, since we're all working from home, I am wearing yoga pants. Raise your hand if you're also in sweatpants. I will not judge you, because it's a very weird time that we are living in. I am a 2005 graduate of Harvard Business School, and I am the founder of ApplicantLab.com, which is an online do-it-yourself tool that is disrupting the MBA admissions consulting industry. You do not, in fact, have to pay $4, $8, $10, or more thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get great admissions advice, because I've done it for you. I've put it in an online tool that you can access at your leisure. Now, that out of the way, let's start talking about, why does the career vision even matter? And it comes down to this wonderful little Scrabble type words that I found. The biggest reason why admissions committees care about what your career vision is in your application, the reason they ask for it in the essays, almost all schools ask you in the essays what your career vision is, and every school will probably ask you in the interview, it comes down to the concept of customer satisfaction. And what do I mean by customer satisfaction? Who are these customers of MBA programs? Well, they fall into two key buckets. The first are current students. Why does it matter to an MBA school that the students are satisfied with the career options that are available to them after graduating? Well, first of all, they have to convince the students to pay a lot of money to enroll in the school. Yes, scholarships for MBA programs are available, but they are far, far, far less likely than they were perhaps in undergraduate or for different types of study. So chances are, if you want to go to a top MBA program, you do have to be prepared to pay a lot of money or take out a huge loan. And so basically, since you're the one paying them, that kind of makes you their customer. So they want to make sure that you'll be excited enough to go to that school so that you will fork out this enormous sum for tuition. And they also care because There are a lot of rankings out there that will survey current students, and they will ask them questions like, how satisfied are you with your program? And how satisfied are you with your career services office? So they want to make sure that you are happy kind of in the immediate term as a student. And they're also thinking a little bit ahead as to the time in your life after you graduate. So when you become an alumnus or an alumna of the program, if you're happy with your MBA experience, you're more likely, frankly, to give them money in terms of annual donations. And similarly, other rankings do also ask alumni, how happy are you with your business school experience? Now, the other bucket of customers for MBA programs are the recruiters. These are the corporations that come to campus that tend to hire a significant portion of each graduating class. And schools want to make sure that recruiters are happy because, first of all, the happier the recruiter is, the more likely they are to give the students of that program a nice, attractive salary. And also, similarly, recruiters are asked their opinions in surveys. So just real quick to dig into what I mean by that, to give it a little bit more concreteness and a little bit more, make it less esoteric. I don't know if you guys have seen this recently. If you are applying to business school, I have a feeling that you're familiar with the US News and World Report rankings. This is one of many, many business school rankings that are out there. And so let's look at how US News and World Reports calculates its ranking. So 40% of their score is basically reputation, right? They call it the quality score, but really, if you look at it, it's peer assessment. So they ask other business schools, which other business schools do you think are good? Not you. You can't vote for yourself. Apart from voting for yourself, who else do you think out there is great? That's 25% of it. So, when you think about that, that's not quantifiable at all, right? What other schools do you think are good is a pretty vague and pretty subjective thing to ask. Anyway, moving on, recruiter assessment, right? They basically ask recruiters, like, basically, which schools do you like the most, or how much do you like the graduates from a certain program? That's 15%. That is not a small amount. Then placement success makes up 35% of their calculation, and that is broken out into how much money their graduates are being offered at 14%, and then the employment rate, which is usually some sort of statistic like percentage of graduates who are employed 3 months after graduation. Right, that's 21%. That's a pretty big chunk. And then the student selectivity is 25%, and that comes down to the average GMAT and GRE score, the average GPA of the accepted class, and then for some reason the acceptance rate only plays in a little piece of it, and whether I don't actually agree that it should be this tiny amount, but for whatever it's worth, that's how much they count it. So let's zoom in a little bit on these three here: recruiter assessment, salary and bonus, and employment rate. Those together make up 50% of the total of the US News and World Report ranking. And these things in red, they are all related to career and ergo your career vision as an applicant. And wait, Maria, what do you mean? Well, let's think about this. The recruiter assessment, right? How happy is a recruiter going to be with coming to my campus and recruiting my students? Well, here's how they're going to think about it. They're going to ask themselves, okay, when we come to this campus, first of all, do we want to hire their students? Right? When we send our representatives, let's say it's a company with a headquarters in Seattle, and they send a recruiter to another city, right? They have to, the recruiter, well, in the pre-coronavirus times, they would have to, the recruiter would take a plane, they'd have to, take a hotel, they'd have to give up their day or a couple of days to come to campus and do the interviews. That's a pretty big ask, right? That's a pretty hefty amount of time and money and resources that goes into the recruiting process. So put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. Let's say you've traveled across the country, you haven't seen your family in days, and you show up to a campus to do interviews, and let's be honest, you are not impressed with really any of the students that you've met, or you just don't really like them, or you're like, I don't want to hire any of these guys, right? So the first thing recruiters want to know is, am I actually going to find good talent if I spend my time going to this school? And then second of all, once I find that talent, if I give them a job offer, are they going to accept this offer, or will all of this been for nothing? Right? So I want people who are smart and talented, who are going to add value to my future, to my organization in the future, and who are actually going to want to work for me. The salary and bonus, basically what that is asking is, do the graduates of the program make money? Do they get lucrative offers after they graduate, or are they only getting those more kind of lower compensation type jobs? And then the employment rate. And if we think about this in terms of how many people are employed after graduation, if that number is on the lower side, that can mean a couple of different things. First of all, the obvious one. It might mean that the Career Services Office, for whatever reason, is just doing a terrible job of placing students or helping students find those jobs. But another element of the employment rate is also how selective or how picky a student is about a certain job offer. So if a student says, well, I came to business school because I want to work for McKinsey, and I know that McKinsey only hired like 2 people from my class who were not previous McKinsey consultants, but I don't care. I'm holding out. I'm not going to accept any other job offer unless it's an offer from McKinsey. Then that person's probably going to graduate. They're probably not going to have a job. And then they're going to be sort of flailing about. And then those people, the people who are like, I refuse to compromise, it's either this job or nothing, they drag down this statistic, which is actually a pretty important statistic in terms of the rankings. Now, every ranking, the Financial Times ranking and all the other rankings, they all have a different methodology. But I did want to break this down for you, at least just the US News and World Report one, so you can see that the career satisfaction for students and alumni, it's not just some sort of esoteric, touchy-feely thing. There are actual real repercussions to a school letting in students who are going to get hired and who are going to be excited about the jobs that they get after they graduate. Okay, Maria, fine. You've convinced me that admissions committees care about the career vision. So now what? Well, let's take a step and let's figure out what makes for a strong career vision. I have no idea what's happening in this picture. I found it on the Microsoft Online picture thing, and I was like, let's do it. Yes, strong career vision. So what makes up a strong career vision? Well, it's really important here to be very strategic and very thoughtful about what you are going to tell the admissions committee, right? Because let's say in real life, if I ask you, okay, just between us, shh, I won't tell anyone, what do you actually want to do? Like, why do you want to get that MBA? Your answer might be something in real life like, no idea. Or you might say, well, Maria, I have this insane dream. I want to be the CEO of Tesla by the time I'm 27 years old. And I also want to be a venture capitalist, and I want to work for GE and all of that before I'm 30. So that's my dream that I want to accomplish. Or if you come up with any sort of vision for your career that would require a hefty amount of magic, I strongly advise you to not actually say that in your application. What your application needs to focus on is you have to have a very logical and buttoned up and realistic idea for what it is you're going to do with this degree. Now, notice that this very sharp-looking young person is standing in front of stacks of money. I don't mean to say that you have to say that you're going to make a lot of money or that you're going to pursue a career that will make a lot of money. There are many people who go to business school who end up entering the social sector, the nonprofit sector, or they become entrepreneurs, and so they don't make money. So it's not so much that you have to make money. It's more, though, that you have to be someone who is going to be successful in some way. Success can be very broadly defined. Basically, they want to make sure that you're going to go out into the world and make them proud. So that way, when people say, like, they see you interviewed in Wired magazine or whatever, and they see their school associated with your name, they're going to be like, yes, awesome. Woo, our school looks good by comparison because our alumni are doing good things in the world. So I've been doing this admissions thing for over 15 years, and there have been times in the past where I've given this presentation in more of a live format with an audience. And in the past when I've done it, some people have said, well, wait a minute, hold on, question. if I sort of formulate what my career vision is in a very sort of calculated way, if I really am strategic about this, is that being a little bit, a little bit dishonest? And here's my answer to you for that. First of all, 75 to 80% of people entering MBA programs end up changing some facet of their career vision from the time they enter until the time they graduate. This happens for a number of reasons. I think one of the biggest reasons is when you go to business school, you are going to be surrounded by people who come from all over the world and who come from every industry imaginable. So you might get to business school thinking that you love the automotive industry, but then you meet someone who works in, I don't know, pharmaceuticals, and they start telling you about, well, here's how it is, here's what it's like to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, pharmaceuticals, love it. That's what I want to do. So even people who do not intend to change their career goals do often end up changing at least some facet of their career goal. So you're not alone. If you end up applying with a certain career vision in your application and it ends up changing at some point, you're not, you're very good company because the vast majority of your classmates will be doing the same. The other sort of pragmatic tip that I have here is, look, no one ever is going to chase you down. It's not like graduation day is going to arrive and you walk across the stage and you take that diploma or whatever virtual thing they're going to do this year. Sorry, guys, who might be in school who are not getting that diploma handing moment. But you get that diploma and you walk off the stage, and it's not like someone from the admissions office is going to run after you and tackle you and say, well, hold up, I've got your essay right here. And in your essay, you said that you were going to go work for GE, but instead you're working for Goldman Sachs. Give me that diploma. Right? No one cares. No one at any point, the minute you set foot on campus, what you said in your application on a very pragmatic level does not matter. Doesn't matter. So therefore, if it doesn't really matter, and if it's going to change anyway, you might as well apply with the strongest possible story. And at this point, you might say to yourself, like, ugh, I don't know that feels good. Look, man, I don't make the rules. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Getting into business school is a game. My job is to teach you how to win that game. It is not to question whether or not the game is a good one. Okay, so what does that mean? So the route to your future career has to be logical based upon where you've been in the past. So what are the 3 ingredients of a good career vision? We're going to dig into each one of these a little bit more in detail in just a moment. But to summarize, number 1, it has to be realistic. Number 2, it has to be inspiring on some level. And by inspiring, I don't necessarily mean you have to say, I'm going to save all of the orphaned whales. It doesn't have to be inspiring necessarily from like a social good perspective, although if it is, that's great. But just sort of inspiring in like an exciting way that energizes the reader. And number 3, ideally, it will be as unique to you as possible. So what do I mean by realistic? Realistic career goal will tie in as many of your previous experiences as possible, your prior skills, the industry that you know best. So either the industry that you have worked in before business school, or if you are a consultant or banker or someone who works in a sort of a services firm, it has to be an industry that you have had a significant client work in. So that way you can claim that you understand that industry. And that way when recruiters from that industry come to campus, they're going to say, oh gosh, this is great. This person actually has done projects with my industry. I'm not going to have to teach them everything from scratch. I'm more likely to hire them. And so, as I said a second ago, this could be direct experience or client experience. It also has to be realistic for the school. Now, when we were in undergrad, the way things were taught were pretty similar from school to school. The classes offered were pretty similar from school to school, right? Like multivariable calculus is multivariable calculus, like no matter where you go. And so the academic portion of a school in undergrad is pretty much the same no matter where you go. And also a lot of the career opportunities available to people are the top people who go to say the top 10 colleges probably all have very similar exit opportunities. It's not quite the same thing in business school. Business schools actually vary tremendously in terms of their academic offerings and the career outcomes for students. We're going to dig into that in just a second. So one of the things you're going to want to do in terms of your research is you're going to want to look up the career placement reports for recent graduating classes to the schools you're applying to and ask yourself, does my career vision match what this school has a history of being good at. And by the way, by forcing you to think about what is a realistic career path for me, I know it might sound like disappointing or kind of like a bummer, but they're actually doing you a favor by forcing you to really think about this so early. First of all, they might be saving you a lot of time and money. It is not unheard of for people, especially people who talk to me, to really start to explore that career path and to realize that, oh my gosh, I don't actually even need the MBA. Right? Since I have a very different business model, since Applicant Lab is just a one-time, it's $2.99 one-time fee, but for GMAT Club users, it's 10% off. Like I'm not trying to sell you on a $12,000 package. So I have no incentive to lie to you, to convince you like, oh, you definitely need an MBA. No, I've got no incentive. So every year I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, you really don't need an MBA for this, right? So first of all, if you do this career exploration and you realize like, hey, if I want to become a CTO, I really don't need an MBA. Or if I want to become like someone who does sales and trading on a, like a stock exchange, I really don't need an MBA. Boom. The school, by forcing you to do this research, has just saved you 2 years of your life and $200,000. So that's pretty nice. Also, by the way, the key recruiting buckets, right? Banking, consulting, consumer packaged goods, technology, that recruiting process starts around October of your first year. So think about it. You get to campus, let's say mid-August. Less than 2 months later, you're going to be interviewing for those summer internship jobs. And the summer internships are important because they're going to lead you to get that post-MBA full-time job. So you don't have a lot of time to sort of meditate and gaze at your navel and go, oh, what's my career vision? Like, you need to figure that out super fast, especially because for consulting and banking in particular, for any of these, but especially some of these more competitive job categories, you need to start practicing like now. So even if you're like, oh no, I definitely know what I want to do, you don't have the luxury of time, basically. Like, you need to get to campus with at least some idea of, this is what I'm going to go for, here's where I'm going to focus my energy, and therefore focus my preparation to maximize my chances of getting that job. So just as a heads up, the summer before you enroll in an MBA program, I want you to start preparing for that job search even before you set foot on campus. So just a heads up, if, for example, you want to do something like consulting, I do want you to start doing that case preparation the summer before, or even try to get a pre-MBA internship, even if it's unpaid, in that future field, because your resume and your future self will thank you for it. Yes, not much time for navel gazing. So one quick side note, please be careful of the VCPE or the MBB consulting trap. I see this a lot, and it's a big mistake that a lot of people make. A lot of people will say something like, dear business school, I want to go to your business school because I want to transition from a career in engineering to VCPE. Right? For those of you who may not know, VC stands for venture capital and PE stands for private equity. So this is a terrible career vision to apply with. It's terrible on 2 levels. Number one, venture capital and private equity, they often get lumped together because the source of their capital is very similar, but the actions that venture capitalists take are very different from the actions that people who work in private equity. Very different career paths. So if you say something like, well, I want to work in VCPE, you sound like a complete noob because it sounds like, well, those are 2 different things. And also getting those jobs is very, 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 very difficult unless you have already worked in VC or PE prior to business school. One of the things I like to quip, one of my more famous expressions or figures of speech that I have coined is, it's Harvard, not Hogwarts. It's not a magic school. If you go into business school and you have 0 finance experience, 0 banking, 0 private equity experience, the chances of you actually getting a private equity job, even at a school like Stanford or Harvard, is actually pretty small. Similarly, saying, well, I want to apply to one of the MBB consulting firms, right? MBB stands for McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. This is also tricky because, yes, you might look at the career outcome report and say, but Maria, look, 30% of this class went into consulting. Fair enough. But ask yourself, look at the admissions. How many people came from the consulting field originally. Most of those people are sponsored by their firms. Therefore, that means that the firm is paying for them to get the MBA. So that means that most of those people are going back to those firms. So if you see in a career report, 30% of our graduates went into consulting, but 25% of our entering class was from consulting. Net, that only means that 5% of the class, probably roughly, 5% of the class was able to make the jump from something else into consulting. So just be aware that those jobs, yes, they're available, but it's not as easy to get as you might think. And so if you apply with something that is unrealistic, the career person is going to say, the admissions person is going to, first of all, take your packet over to the career person and say, well, can this person get this job? And the career person is going to say, man, I don't think so, right? I've been working here in career services for 6 years, and we've actually never gotten someone who was, say, a QA engineer a job in private equity. Never. And so then the admissions person is going to say, well, this person's going to be that customer satisfaction score is going to be really low. So you know what? Let's not take a chance. Let's just reject them. We don't want to take that chance with having a disappointed customer. So what you're going to do, part of what your homework is going to be, is you're going to go to the career vision reports for the career placement reports for the different schools, and you're going to look up and see who are the top hiring organizations, because that's going to give you a sense of, okay, realistically, which companies does this career services office have very strong relationships with? It may not be obvious. For example, Amazon, right? Amazon is one of the most attractive employers these days. People think like, oh man, I want to go work for Amazon, so I have to get into Harvard, Stanford, or MIT. Actually, Amazon, one of their biggest feeder schools is Ross, right? And one of their other biggest feeder schools is, for example, University of Washington Foster, because it's right there. It's in the city where they live. So it's a lot easier. Different schools have very different outcomes with different organizations. So you're going to want to look up which companies is this school sending people to. Here's a more detailed list, right? So they might have like, here are our top people, and then here's the full list. And we're going to get to this in a minute, but I want you to also reach out to current students in the professional clubs for the industry that you're interested in and ask them bluntly. Say to them something like, look, I am dying to work for Amazon. What are my chances? Based on you and your friends in the technology club or in the logistics club or the whatever club, like how many of you guys actually got those jobs? And the current student is going to tell you, like, yeah, actually recruiting was great this year. We had a really strong showing with that company. Or they're going to be like, look, man, it was just one kid who got that one internship and they didn't even get a full-time offer at the end of the summer, right? So the students are going to be the ones to really tell it to you straight. So in addition to your career vision having to be realistic, it also has to be inspiring on some level. So over the years, I have seen so many essays that say something like this. I want to get an MBA because I aspire to become a mid-level director of marketing for a leading technology company. Oh my God, that is so boring. That is so boring. Number one, super boring. Number two, a leading technology company? What does that even mean? There are 40 zillion different leading technology companies, and every leading technology company does something totally different. Netflix is not doing the same thing as Tesla. Microsoft does not provide the same service, nor does it have the same product or business model as Google, right? I mean, there's a little bit of overlap here and there, but for the most part, these are very, very, very different businesses. So please, in addition to not saying, I want to work in VCPE, please don't say, I want to work for a technology company. I want to work for a consumer goods company. Again, consumer goods could be everything from fruit juice to nail polish, right? You need to be a lot more specific, because what you want is you want the person on the other side reading this essay. If you've seen some of my other presentations in the past, you might have seen the one where I've got the picture of there's like a gentleman who's literally like, he has like stacks of paper on like crushing him. I didn't include this one here because I use it too. I use that picture a lot, so I thought I'd leave that out this time. But again, picture this admissions officer on the other end having to read literally thousands of applications and thousands of essays. It gets so boring. And so what you want is you want them to read your career vision, and instead of being like blah, 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 consumer goods, yeah, whatever, you want them to lean forward. You want them to say, wait a minute. Oh, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. I like this kid, right? That's the overall impression. You want them to say, I like this kid. That's all of your application is meant to do that. But specifically with the career vision, you want that vision or that like sort of dream that you have for your career. You want that to make them sort of like lean forward and say, wow, this is really cool. Oh, this is cool. Instead of like, right? So what are some ways you can do that? There are lots of ways you can do it, but I've got two key ways to do it. One, I think if you have some sort of powerful origin story of how your commitment to your career developed, these can be very good at drawing people in, right? So something like, I'll never forget the time that blah, blah, blah happened. Many years ago, this is one of my favorite examples to use because it really was so powerful. I had a client who worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and her essay did not start off with, I aspire to become a marketing manager at a leading pharmaceutical company. No, gross, boring. Her essay started with, I stared in shock as my friend collapsed on the floor. She was having a seizure and had to be taken to the hospital. It turns out that the reason she had the seizure was because she had been given the wrong drug. I want to work in the pharmaceutical industry, or I have so far chosen to work in the pharmaceutical industry because I never want this to happen to anyone else. So I'm not saying that you have to have this super dramatic, like Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise movie, jumping out of an airplane, super exciting career vision. But I am saying that if you have something personal in your background, that a deeply impactful and emotional moment that was the moment that led you to say, look, education is where I want to be. Or, man, mobility, the future of mobility, self-driving cars, ever since my mother became legally blind and has been trapped in her house, that was when I realized I had to work in the self-driving car industry. If you've got that sort of emotional connection, bring that out, because that will form a connection, that will form sort of this emotional, the person on the other side will be cheering for you if you've got that personal story. If you don't have the personal story, don't worry, don't panic. Another great way to create that opening hook is to come up with some sort of fascinating fact. Like, for example, down here I've got, this is one that somebody used several years ago, someone who wanted to work in fintech, right? This sort of financial technology for the future. Did you know that less than 50% of people in India have a bank account, but 80% have a cell phone? Therefore, think of how much potential there is for mobile banking apps, right? And so the person made this argument of like, mobile banking apps in India are going to be huge, and I'm the person who's going to lead the charge because I've been working in the mobile space, blah, 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 blah. So by providing this fascinating fact, as a reader, you think to yourself, wow, this person's got potential. This person is going to be in Wired magazine in 20 years. And so I'm going to let this person in, as opposed to I aspire to be a product manager at a lead. Well, no, boring. Okay. And then the third part is, and this is just sort of bonus. This is not, don't sort of overthink this if it doesn't apply to you, but if you happen to have had sort of various different experiences, either between things that you do at work or community service activities that you've done, or different parts of your background, like a hobby that you have a very passionate commitment to, or again, community service or some aspect of your personal background, see if you can sort of weave that in to the career vision. So I'll give you an example from when I was applying. So prior to business school, I worked in the television industry. And I had worked in the television industry in Latin America and then in Asia. So in India, primarily India and Taiwan were the two markets I covered. And so when I applied to business school, I thought, okay, I've got the TV business thing. And I also happen to be Hispanic. I'm a Latina American. And at that point, at least, this was almost 20 years ago. At that point, at least, there were not very many entertainment options available for people in my demographic, even though we were the fastest growing demographic, and we're sort of scheduled, or not scheduled, but projected to become like 20% of the US population in 20 years or something like that. So I combined both of those things. I combined my professional experience in television with my personal background, my personal ethnicity. And I said, look, I want to create a television station that is going to appeal to this very fast growing and currently underserved portion of the population. So ask yourself, again, this is bonus points, it's optional, but if you can tie anything in, let's say you work in the technology industry, but also you have in your spare time done tutoring for children to teach them how to code? Can you combine those two things to say, I want to start an education startup that will teach children how to code, right? Where you combine those different elements of your background. Because not only will this help make your career vision sound more authentic, like it will really help convince me as an admissions reader that you mean it, you really are committed to this, but it will help you stand out. Because, spoiler alert, if you're thinking of applying to business school by saying, I want to become a product manager at Amazon, guess what? There are literally thousands of other people in the applicant pool saying, I want to become a product manager at Amazon. But if you, let's say, worked in the wine industry, I occasionally work with people who work in cool industries like wine or alcohol, or not that those are the only cool industries, but they happen to be cool. And you say, I currently work in the wine industry. So I want to become a product manager at Amazon specifically to help them enter the alcohol distribution business so that they can start selling wine. Now that becomes more interesting. Now it ties in together your background, and it helps you stand out from everyone else who's just being vague and generic. So just a heads up, in case you're having trouble sort of trying to picture, well, what am I going to say? Applicant Lab can help you do this. Now, there's actually, in the free trial of Applicant Lab, you don't even have to pay for this. I give you for free access to some of those initial exercises, those early exercises, to start getting you thinking about what you are going to say. So just a heads up that after we're done here, you can check that out. So no matter what, though, you have to do homework. The bigger the career vision the career change you want to make from where you are today to where you want to be in the future, the bigger that change is, yes, you can apply with a change story. You absolutely can. But the more change you want to make, the more research you have to do. So you need to be the person who comes up with that exciting fact about the market trend or this new change in the business model, right? We're now moving from this type of business model to this type of business model. So I think there's a real big opportunity there. Or, companies are changing the way they work. And so I want to be the person who takes advantage of that new wave. I also want you to do informational interviews. I want you to reach out to people that you used to work with, people from your college, perhaps, who have since gone on to get MBAs or who have since gone on to have that job that you want. Or maybe even reach out to hiring departments. This one is a little bit harder to do, but even just reaching out to them and saying, like, look, you guys are an ed tech company. I'm an engineer without any education experience, but in my free time, I tutor children. Do you think in the future, if I were to get an MBA, do you think you would hire me for this type of a job? Because the onus is on you. The burden of proof is on you as the applicant that you can get this job. And what you're going to do is then in the essay where you start writing about this, you're not just going to come up with like the exciting story and here's how my background ties into it, but also, by the way, I spoke with 3 other product managers in Amazon, and they all told me that if I get an MBA, my background in the wine distribution industry is going to be super useful in helping them expand into the alcohol market or whatever, right? You will then have that social proof that then makes me as an admissions reader say, oh, okay, well, at least they're not just making something totally crazy up, right? At least there's like a real story here, and there's a real chance that this can happen. My other piece of advice for career research is I want you to find your resume twin. And what do I mean by a resume twin? I mean, I want you to find someone who already is either in business school or who graduated from business school relatively recently, whose pre-MBA career path looked a lot like your career path looks now. Because if you find someone, let's say in this case, I decided that Lindsay Lohan at age 13 in The Parent Trap, let's pretend that instead she went to Emory University as an undergrad and she worked for Ernst & Young. If she can find other people in the MBA world who also went to Emory and who also worked in her division of Ernst & Young and then went on to a certain business school, that helps Lindsay Lohan. Did I say Lindsay Lohan before? I feel like I just might have said the wrong name. Anyway, that will help Lindsay here figure out that, oh my gosh, you know what? That business school, let's just make one up. UCLA Business School is really open to people with my background. Therefore, since they've accepted people like me in the past, there's a really good chance that they're going to continue to accept people like me in the future. Therefore, my chances of getting in are higher. The same thing works with career vision. If somebody is able to transfer from, say, working at Ernst & Young in auditing, let's say, some sort of accounting auditing, and then they are able to transition to work for a due diligence consulting firm, then now Lindsay Lohan knows that she too can make that jump. So again, this is someone she can cite in her essay. I spoke to someone else who had the exact same job that I had before business school, and look where they are now. Therefore, I know it's possible. Therefore, admissions committee, you don't need to worry about me. You don't need to lose sleep or get worried about like, oh, is this person going to be mad at us later if they don't get that job? Because look, I can get the job. So now that we've been talking about the career vision, where does it fit in the different pieces of your application? I know I just mentioned the essay a couple of times, but when it comes to the MBA application, if you've been on my videos in the past, you've already seen this little animation. I promise I have a reason for putting it in here. It's not just because it took me like several hours to animate this in PowerPoint. There's a real reason. So when we talk about the MBA application, there are all these different pieces to it, right? There's the GMAT, the GPA, your essays, your resume, your recommendations, little short answer boxes, the interview, etc. Now, the career vision is going to play a role in a lot of these, as is the why MBA reason, why our school. And then in the middle of everything that has to permeate your entire application is this idea of portraying yourself or conveying your leadership skills. So all of these pieces impact each other, and they all have to flow together in the same direction. So that way your application doesn't like one part isn't pulling in one direction, the other part's pulling in the other direction, and then it gets paralyzed and it gets stuck. So let's look a little bit more into how the career vision impacts each of these different gears in the machinery of your application, because it does impact a lot of these. Not your GMAT and your GPA, but all the rest of it, it definitely impacts. So for example, how does your career vision impact your why MBA argument? Well, first of all, as I mentioned before, you might be able to achieve that goal without an MBA. The MBA is an expensive degree. It is often 2 years, sometimes 1, but usually 2. And it will probably cost you at least $150,000 to $200,000 in loans. It's not a cheap degree. So if you can get to where you want to go without that degree, do that, right? So you have to make sure in your why MBA argument that you're really explaining to them, like, no, you guys, no, I really need this degree. So your why MBA argument has to be very tightly aligned with your short-term and long-term career goals. And what does this mean? Like here, let me give you a pragmatic example. Sometimes I'll see people say, okay, right now I'm an engineer and I want to become a product manager at Microsoft. And then why am I excited to come to your school? Well, I can't wait to take the consulting elective. Wait a minute. Wait, hold on. You just said 2 paragraphs earlier that you want to become a product manager. And yet here below, you're talking about joining the consulting club and taking the consulting elective. Like, what? No, the career vision is moving in this direction, and then the why MBA is suddenly moving in the other direction, and so the gears are going to gum each other up. You have to be very consistent and very tight with your argument that the things you plan to take advantage of in business school, the classes, the clubs, the whatever, are things that directly tie in to that future career goal. And don't move in different directions, because then you will seem flaky. How does the career vision impact the why this school argument? Well, as I alluded to before, different schools can have very, very different career outcomes, depending upon which relationships their career services team has with different recruiters at different companies, what the previous history has been, which academic offerings do they have? Like recruiters, they don't want to waste their time. So if they know that one business school only has like 2 little electives in, say, product management, and that they're weak, and this other school, though, has an entire semester and a design lab and all this other cool stuff, where are they going to want to focus their attention? They're going to want to focus their attention on the school that has the stronger academic offering, because that way I know if I hire this kid, this one is going to be far better prepared to help my company than this other one. And then similarly, the extracurriculars, right? Some schools might have an entertainment club that has like 3 members, and they kind of just sit around and don't really do much. Other schools might have an entertainment and media club that has 100 members that puts on an annual conference with 1,000 attendees. So the schools really be a discerning consumer. Look at what the different offerings are, and then focus on the schools that are going to get you more those resources that will help you then in your future career. So here's a quick example. Let's say you want to work in real estate, and let's just pretend for the sake of argument that you don't currently work in real estate, right? It's something you've been interested in, but you actually really need that knowledge to make that career jump successfully. So here on the left-hand side are all of the real estate offerings that one top school offers. And obviously the offerings change from year to year, but this is for illustrative purposes. So this school has 3 electives related to real estate. Good. 3. There's another school, on the other hand, that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 electives. These are 2 top 10 schools. Look at the difference. One school has 3 electives. The other school has 11 electives. Which academic offering is going to better prepare you to hit the ground running and to contribute and be a valuable contributor to that post-MBA employer, therefore putting yourself on that path to success? Which school is going to help you more? The school on the right is going to help you more. Well, guess what? The school on the left is Harvard, and the school on the right is Columbia Business School. You need to research. Not all business schools, not all electives, not all clubs are created equal. So how does your career vision impact the resume? If you've attended my resume workshop video before, you will have already gotten a little taste of this. If you haven't, after we're done here, go Google that other GMAT Club session that I did about a month or 2 ago. But just to reiterate, you want to give the admissions readers confidence that you're going to get that future job. Therefore, in your resume, you can't just say everything you've ever done, right? There's not enough room. It's a 1-page paper. You're not going to be able to list like literally every project, everything you've done every day of your life. You're just not going to have room. So when you're focusing on things, when you're picking which things to talk about, if you've got 2 equally strong projects that you can mention, let's say you want to become an education entrepreneur. One of those projects was helping an oil company maximize its logistics supply chain. Another project was helping an education company create a student management database, and you only have room for one project. Which project should you choose? Pick the project or the skill or the activity or the accomplishment that most closely ties in with the career vision. That way, when I read the resume, I don't panic. I think, okay, this person can actually get that job. So how does the career vision impact the essays and also the interview? Not every school will ask for your career vision essay, although most of them do. And even the schools who aren't so keen on it in the essays or the written application are super into it in the interview. So just be ready for that. So aside from picking the stories that are going to demonstrate, when you're writing your essays or talking about yourself in your interview, you're not just going to focus on those stories that show you being the best leader possible. Also, again, anything that points to success in your future field. So let's say you currently work in marketing and you want to switch to finance. As a marketer, you probably do a whole bunch of creative stuff, right? Usually marketers do a ton of creative stuff, but maybe you've also done something like optimizing Google AdWords campaign. Focus on the optimizing the Google AdWords campaign. Why? Because that demonstrates quantitative ability. It demonstrates being comfortable with numbers. Being comfortable with numbers is going to matter a lot more to an investment banking recruiter than your artistic sensibility or your, creative flair. This is also a place, especially in the essays or in the interview, to show them the research you've done. So if in the interview I say to you, okay, so, why do you want to go into whatever, that's where you can say, look, I realize it might sound a little bit strange or it might sound like difficult or unrealistic, but I've actually talked to 6 people who have made a similar switch, right? That's going to help, again, allay those fears. So some other ways to research, I want you to network with current students, past students, resume twins, and people whose careers you want to emulate. I'm repeating this point because a lot of people, when I say this, they nod their heads and go, and then they don't do it. And then I get their essays, and the essay sounds completely unrealistic. It sounds completely wacko. And I'm like, what makes you think you're going to get this job? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, you need some proof. So I'm just reiterating that to make sure that I've made the point. So going back to my awesome little thing, just a heads up, see all of these little gears, all the little gears that all make up part of your application. I teach you how to address each one of them in Applicant Lab, the online tool that walks you through expert admissions advice, but for a fraction of the price because you do it all online in your own time. It is a self-guided platform. You don't have to worry about booking time with me or what my availability is. Guess what? You want to watch a video on career vision or how to approach the Harvard essay or whatever at 3 a.m, you can do it at 3 a.m, and it costs a teeny fraction of what those other admissions consultants want to charge you. So don't just take my word for the fact that Applicant Lab is awesome. I won the regional new venture competition. So a lot of these business schools will do alumni venture competition. So I won the audience favorite vote a couple of years ago. I am the only admission service that is that the Harvest, which is the Harvard Business School student newspaper, endorses. And at GMAT Club, you can see a ton of my reviews. So check those out when you have a chance. If at any point in the past 52 minutes, I have told you something that was new or that helped spark a fresh idea for you that you found useful, please give a like at the bottom. So that way, again, GMAT Club knows that they should have me back. And okay, that's it. I do have a few minutes left for questions. So now, oh, here I am. Oh, look, my hair got a little messed up. All right. Okay. So now this is the part where like I have not been looking at the comments as they've been coming through because I've been focused on the presentation. So now I have to like jump through. Okay. So question, how do I know that I'm on the right path for a strong career vision? So Sai, in the I hope that some of the ideas that I gave you are, throughout the presentation have been helpful. In Applicant Lab, I also walk you through some other things that you can be doing. I think you really need to ask yourself, here's sort of a cool thought exercise you might want to try. Assume that you're not you. Assume that you're like your worst enemy, like somebody that you just hate, and that you're reading their application to business school and you look at their resume and you look at their excuse for getting an MBA and what they say they want to do, and ask yourself like try to find holes in your own story, as if though it's harder to do when we think about it ourselves because we like ourselves. But if you think of it as like, oh, this is my worst enemy. Yeah, right. You're going to get that job at a hedge fund. Good luck, buddy. Right. If you sort of look at yourself with a very critical eye, that can be a great way to do it. And another way, again, talk to those current students. The current students, if you talk to like admissions at one of these career fairs, the admissions people are pretty much always going to tell you that sure, do it. Because admissions officers, they kind of have a motivation to convince or to persuade everyone to apply no matter what. That's why if you go to like the MBA fairs and you say, hey, I've got a 520 GMAT and I've got 1 year of work experience, am I getting in? They'll never be like, no, you're never getting in. They never say that. So it's the same thing with the career vision. They're never going to say like, oh, that's a terrible idea. Because they want to maximize the number of people who apply, because then that makes their school look more selective. But the students have far less of a motivation to lie to you. So the students are going to be the ones to say, look, man, we got killed in recruiting this year, right? The students are going to say, whew, I have 7 friends who tried to get jobs at Procter & Gamble and only one of them did it, right? So that's a great way to start to get a sense and a sanity check of whether or not, like, do I sound crazy or not? I'm an Applicant Lab user. Super happy, and Maria's fantastic. Thank you, Yash. Well, oh, hi, Donna. How's it going? This is Donna Bauman. She's also an admissions consultant friend of mine. I hope your daughter's okay. She was just in New Zealand and had to evacuate because of coronavirus. So I hope she's doing okay, Donna. Really useful for me. I'm a recruiter, but I want to switch to business development for the sports industry. Is this a right path to go for an MBA? So this is a tricky one, Kunal, because first of all, the sports industry is not one of those big hiring industries, right? It's not like consumer packaged goods or technology. The sports industry does not recruit on campus. It is a small niche industry. So if you do go to business school and you want to work in sports, you will have to network tremendously. The complete 100% onus of getting that job is going to be on you. And so it's going to be tough because if you don't already have contacts in the sports industry, it's going to be tough. And I think it might be tough to do recruiting to business development. Now, business development can mean two different things. Sometimes business development means like sales, and sometimes business development means like strategy. So what I would say is come up with some other career vision for your application. And then I don't know if the MBA will necessarily get you to where you want to go. Can you switch from HR? Can you make that functional switch from HR to business development? If your job involves recruiting in terms of like selling people on joining a company, then maybe you could make a switch to business development because you could argue to an employer like, look, I sell people all the time. So if it's a matter of selling them on coming to work at this company or selling them on their company buying a box seat at the new LA Rams, stadium or whatever. I'm not a sports person, but like I can transfer that skill. Maybe you could do that, but in terms of switching from HR to a more strategic business development, that might be a little bit tougher. You might have to then do that in steps, right? You might have to say, go to business school, try to work in something related to like strategy. Maybe that could be like a strategy consulting type of thing, like, and then, but don't say the top ones because those are hard to get. Those are hard jobs to get. But like, you could then switch to a strategic role, maybe at like a general consulting firm, and then try to network from there. But to make that direct switch from business school, I think would be quite difficult. I would urge you to try to at least maybe get an HR job at a sports team. So at least that way you're making the industry switch, and then try to take it from there. Is it realistic for me to plan my MBA 3 to 4 years from now? Because even though I have 2 years of experience in Ernst & Young, hey, you and Lindsay Lohan, my fake Lindsay Lohan, I have just begun my career in marketing. Okay, so Priyanka, what I would tell you is you've got 2 years of experience. Yeah, so I would say most people start applying to business school when they have around 4 to 5 years of experience. So it's good that you're thinking ahead right now. Because there's a lot of stuff you could be doing, not just in terms of researching your future career goal, but in terms of really learning about what leadership, what leadership traits business schools are looking for, and then becoming the person who demonstrates those traits by, say, like volunteering to lead things at your company. So I think thinking ahead right now is a really good thing for you to do. So that way, when you do apply in 2 to 3 years, you'll be the strongest candidate you can possibly be. Also, start studying for the GMAT. You don't want to wait until like 6 months before the application and then be like, oh, I need to take the GMAT. And then the GMAT's really hard and whatever. Side note on the GMAT, don't anyone on this live stream quit their job to study for the GMAT. Don't do it. Can you suggest some resources to read or follow for the industry I want to work in your case, consumer goods? So yeah, I mean, look, I don't have any magic wand here. I think you just sort of start following the blogs and, the industry reports, and do that networking that I mentioned earlier, right? Start reaching out to, usually the consumer package people tend to congregate in the marketing clubs at a lot of these schools. So start reaching out to the people in the marketing clubs. And again, if anyone here is early in their career, like 1 to 2 years out, and they're like, I really want to work in a different career, try to make that jump now. Try to make as much of that jump now before business school. So then that way, when you apply, it will seem a lot more realistic. So you should read, but you should talk to people too. That will also help you network and learn the real nitty-gritty of what's happening on the ground. Why do people do an MBA again if strong career vision is already there, even from reputed schools? Okay, I'm trying to understand the question. If strong career vision is already there, even from reputed schools. I'm not sure what you mean, Sai. There are lots and lots and lots of great reasons to do an MBA. There's a reason that these degrees charge so much and why they get very, very happy and willing people every year to pay the amount of money they ask for. The MBA can be an excellent resource for both career transformation, personal transformation, building a lifelong network. It's actually a great tool. So I don't know what you mean. I am sneezing a lot. Yeah, sorry. I was sort of I don't think I have COVID-19. I think it's just allergies, but fingers crossed. Okay, last one. What if you do not need an MBA to accomplish your career goals, but you really want one? How do you overcome that? Well, what I would say on a pragmatic level, if we think about the slide where I had Forrest Gump running, no one's going to run after you if you end up using your MBA for something totally different than you said you would. So what I would do is I would come up with a career vision for the purposes of the application that does require an MBA. That's what I would say. Or conversely, you could say, I need the MBA to move up in my field. So one of the more common ones for people who, because not everyone who applies with a career switching story. So if you want to stay in your existing industry or career, one of the big reasons you might want to get an MBA is, for example, to move up. So especially those managerial and those leadership classes, right? When we're earlier in our careers, we tend to be individual contributors, right? Where it's our own, our definition of being a good employee is just based primarily on our own ability to get things done. As we move up through the ranks, we start getting judged more on our ability to get things done through others. And as you rise through any organization, if you want to become a C-suite executive, you are going to need to have those managerial skills. So a lot of business schools will often have many electives on managerial skills. So you can always focus on that. But I would basically, on a very pragmatic level, I would reverse engineer the career goal to be one that needs an MBA. And so that's my advice for you. Okay, so that looks like it's everything we have time for today. Neat. Just looking at the time, and yes, indeed, we are right past the time. So if you liked the advice, yes, thank you for the reminder. Like button, where is it? It should be somewhere down there. Please press it so that GMAT Club will ask me back. And again, your free trial of ApplicantLab.com will give you some access to the career vision, some of the career vision module, so you can work through some of these things yourself. And so yeah, give out the free trial and subscribe to this YouTube channel as well, because GMAT Club will give you a bunch of goodies also. So that's it for me today. Thank you everyone so much for joining me. And yeah, 7-day access to GMAT Club tests. If you become a YouTube subscriber, pretty good deal. So please check that out as well. And everyone, have a great day. And please stay safe in these crazy times. Thank you very much. Bye.